Let's welcome in our NHL Network insider right now, Elliotte Friedman. Elliotte, when you heard the news about Henrik Lundqvist, the heart condition, and him having to step aside for at least this season, what was your immediate reaction?
Well, the first thing you do, Jameson, is that I checked to make sure that the account was legit. You know, you saw the news and you saw it was from his actual blue check mark account. So that's when I first really began to believe it wasn't some sort of terrible Twitter joke that maybe you hoped was somehow wrong. And, you know, I watched the video a first time earlier and I just saw it again at the top of the segment. You think the second time you watch it, you're a bit desensitized and it's a little bit easier. No, it's still just awful to watch and gut wrenching. Number one, as the commissioner said, at a time when medical professionals and first responders have been an enormous part of the world's life. Again, they do an unbelievable job in just making sure that things are diagnosed and explained to Lundqvist in advance. I hope in some way in the future, maybe Lundqvist can play again. But, I mean, the most important thing is that they got it, they found it, and everybody can just sit back and determine now what his future is going to be in terms of his health, most importantly. As for the Capitals, I understand right now the most likely course of action is their backup last year in the bubble when Samsonov was injured was Vitek Vanacek, and it's likely that they will start with a Samsonov-Vanacek combination this year. You know, it's late now. A lot of the goalies are spoken for. I'm sure they're going to look around. I mean, who wouldn't? But that seems to be the most likely situation as we speak at this time. You know, the interesting thing will be what happens with, you know, they're a cap-tight team like most teams are. Will they put Lundqvist on waivers and they just have the contract go away? I think that's kind of what people are expecting over the next couple of days, but obviously they'll take their time to figure this out. We have time right now.
Yeah, I mean, they'll sort it out as he will. I probably want to place a call into Ryan Miller, but that's just me. We'll see if he would come out there. So, unsettling news to Henrik Lundqvist, maybe some unsettling news to the return to play for the negotiations going on coming out of Canada that perhaps the Canadian government or the provinces are not going to allow the Canadian teams to fly back and forth to their home cities, and maybe the Canadian teams might have to cross the border and play in the States, much like the Raptors are, like the Blue Jays did last year. What can you let us know about the latest with regards to the Canadian bubble?
Well, my teammates at Sportsnet, Chris Johnston, breaking the story today that, and it's simply a situation that they can't seem to get a deal done between all the different provinces. And technically the provinces oversee this, but you know there is going to be federal government involvement in this too. And basically, from what I understand, Mike, is that they just don't want these players flying all over the country. And it seems a bit crazy in the sense that, you know, you and I who live in Canada,
I do.
We can buy a ticket right now on a public airline to fly anywhere in the country that they travel. And, you know, these would be private planes with players being tested, but they don't seem to want it. And I have been told that is one of the major sticking points that a agreement between the league and the players is not done yet, is because they can't get certainty on this. Now, what could it mean? You know, it could mean that there's a bubble in Toronto. It could mean that teams are moved to the United States. It could mean this gets sorted out. You know, a couple weeks ago, somebody told me they heard a rumor that the Maple Leafs might have to play in Orlando. That's where their ECHL team is. I had checked into it at the time, and I was kind of laughed out of the building. But it just shows you how life changes right now. And I hope there's a solution to all this. It seems a little crazy to me. But, you know, right now the world is in a weird place and they can't get a deal done.
The world's changing. The landscape of the NHL is changing. The landscape of the St. Louis Blues roster right now is changing with the announcement of Alex Steen's retirement earlier today. 15 seasons in the National Hockey League, 12 of those in St. Louis. Can you shed some insight on maybe how and why he came to this decision?
Couple of different things there. Number one, he, as the Blues announced in the formal statement today, he's got some serious back problems. Like, they bothered him the last couple of years, and basically he was talking about in that statement about, or Doug Armstrong was quoted today as saying, like, basically it was tough, you know, getting him to put his shoes on. And, you know, I think there's a number of players. You know, his wife also gave birth to a baby last night. I think there's a number of players who are kind of be in a similar situation where this year is going to be so strange. Do you really want to be away from your families? Are you worried about COVID around your families? I think between all of that, there are some guys who are really thinking about what this year is going to be like. And Steen was obviously one of those people with the injury. Now, the word retirement is key here. The Blues announced a retirement. Technically, he's not going to retire until after this year when his contract was up, so they can put him on LTIR. I think the Armstrong did say in his media appearances today they will look at some things. And one thing I'm curious about is Mike Hoffman. When Mike Hoffman was being traded by Ottawa, the Blues did a real deep dive into him, and they have been interested in him in the past. I'm wondering if that's one of the players that they will look at.
Do you think they will quickly turn also to Vince Dunn, a guy they have to re-sign now with a little bit more room to get Vince Dunn re-signed and then see what Hoffman or Anthony Duclair or whatever kind of offensive player they want to go look at?
Well, Mike, I will say to this, like one of the earlier in the summer, the off season, when we were around the time of free agency, one of the biggest questions a lot of teams were asking was, what's St. Louis going to do with Vince Dunn, especially after Torrey Krug signed? So I think they always plan to get him signed, but I think if it's a situation where they have to move him, I don't think there's going to be any shortage of interest.
All right, Elliotte, appreciate the insight. Remember he came on earlier this week on Monday, and he's like, guys, I apologize. This is going to be a very light hit. You more than made up for it today. A lot of meat on the bone, so it all evens out, Elliotte. We told you.
But by the way, Jameson, the thing I love is in New Jersey, they're calling the Prudential Center the Prubble if they play there. I already like the nicknames that are coming up.
All right, we'll have to see if it comes to fruition.
I tell you right now, I don't think the players are going to like the idea, not because it's Newark or Prudential, but like the Canadian players playing an entire season in the States like the Blue Jays or like the Raptors are doing. I don't think the Canadian players, a quarter of the league, will be quite so enthused about playing in the Prubble or anywhere else outside Canada.
I think you're right.
All right, we'll see how it plays out. Elliotte Friedman, thank you for the latest. And, of course, we know you'll keep us up to speed if anything should break.